Welcome back to the portal between worlds, Starseed Essence Media. I'm Eva Rozier, your host. Today, I wanted to talk about something that sounds like it came straight out of science fiction, but it's real and it's happening right now. Electric air taxis. This is cool. This is a cool little story. Not a lot of people are covering it, but it's happening right now. So I feel like it's very important going towards flying cars. What's next? But this is real, and I'm going to go over the references and just touch on a few topics in regards to these aircraft that can rise up vertically from the ground like a helicopter, transition into forward flight like an airplane, and potentially carry passengers across cities and between communities. In March of 2026, the United States Department of Transportation and Aviation Administration announced something significant. 8 advanced aviation projects were selected for a new federal pilot program spanning 26 states across America. So are flying taxis really coming? Yes. We're having flying taxis. Nobody's covering the story. It's crazy. But there's still a little more to the story here. Take a moment and subscribe to the channel. If this resonates with you, please subscribe. So there's a little bit more to the story. The aircraft we're talking about are often called EVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing craft. Think of something somewhere between a drone and a helicopter and a small airplane. Many are powered by multiple electric motors or propellers. They can potentially take off from vertically small areas, climb vertically, transition into forward flight, and then land vertically at another location. The FAA calls the larger field advanced air mobility. The government has already established regulations addressing pilot qualifications and how these aircraft can eventually operate inside national airspace system. Federal Aviation. This is from the Federal Aviation Administration. So here is the Federal Aviation Administration, Advanced Air Mobility Air Taxis. So this is a real deal thing. We are in this new aviation era. These advanced air mobility aircraft is an umbrella term for aircraft that are typically highly automated, electrically powered, and have vertical takeoff and landing capabilities. Many of these aircraft fall into the power lift category, are often referred as air taxis. So this is pretty cool. What is the FAA's role? And the FAA, again, is the Federal Aviation Administration. So we have a lot of information here. So here we go. Here's the timeline of what has taken place. So these are all the milestones. This is pretty cool.
These powered lift will take off and land like a helicopter, yet move through the skies like an airplane. The Federal Aviation Administration is now ready for these aircraft to safely enter service. In October,
we are living in some amazing times.
We finalized a rule for pilot training and qualifications, the last key step needed to get them flying safely. We've made this new rule flexible to accommodate the diverse designs of powered lift. This approach ensures that safety remains our top priority, while we embrace innovation to the maximum degree possible.
The next to come will be flying cars. Here we go, y'all. Here we are in this time in life. Let's see. How do I get this back? So on March 9th, 2026, the Department of Transportation announced 8 projects under what is called the EVTOL Integration Pilot Program, or EIPP. Together, those projects span to 26 states. And this isn't only about flying people around cities. The federal program includes 6 major categories: urban air taxis, regional passenger transportation, cargo and logistics, emergency medical operations, autonomous aircraft, and transportation supporting offshore and energy industries. The FAA says the purpose is to put these aircraft into real-world operating environments so regulators can collect data and determine how they can safely operate on a much larger scale. So let's look at where this is happening. One major project involves the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Multiple companies are participating, including Archer Aviation, Beta Technologies, Electra, and Joby Aviation. The program includes 12 different operational concepts throughout New England, and one of the most fascinating involves electric passenger aircraft operating from the Manhattan heliport. This is from the Department of Transportation. Imagine this. You're in Manhattan. Instead of sitting in traffic trying to reach another part of the region, you travel to a heliport. You board a small electrical craft and lift directly into the sky. That's essentially the transportation model these companies are attempting to build. Now let's move south to Texas. The Texas Department of Transport is working with companies including Archer, Beta, and Joby, and Whisk. Their proposed regional network would connect Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio, eventually expanding towards Houston. And from those cities, smaller air taxis could expand outward. That means we could eventually see something resembling an aerial transportation network connecting major Texas cities. Then there's Utah. The Utah Department of Transportation is leading another project involving 4 states spanning the Pacific Northwest, Rocky Mountains, and Plains, testing several different types of advanced aircraft and transportation concepts. Companies involved: Ampere, Beta, and Joby. Let's look at this Ampere. Ampere aircraft. Okay. Here's Ampere. So this is one of the companies that's going to be a part of this taxi. Future mobility. Ampere in Utah launch UFly EIPP program with hybrid electric regional flights. Hybrid electric EEL begins with real-world operations in Utah under FAA EIPP program, completing regional operations across 340,000 miles of routes relevant to cargo, passenger, and community air services. Long Beach, California, August the 6th, 2026. Ampere today announced the start of flight operations. Woohoo! So this is some new news here. This is for immediate release. The Salt Lake City UFly. This is amazing. So Ampere developed hybrid electric propulsion systems for aircraft. Now, where my mind goes, let's see, this is the press contact. I kind of want to, I want to say, like, who owns this company? Oops. Okay. Ampere is an independently private aerospace company co-founded in 2016 by Kevin Norether and Corey Combs. Surf Air Mobility. This is pretty cool stuff. Okay. Another enormous project is being coordinated through Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Department of Transportation is participating with something called the NASAO Advanced Air Mobility Multi-State Collaborative. This project stretches across 13 states. It isn't focused simply on the futuristic city taxis. It's also about bringing regional aviation back to communities that have gradually lost convenient air services. The idea is to create smaller regional transportation routes similar to America's essential air service systems, the Department of Transportation. Then we have Louisiana, and this project looks a little bit different. Louisiana's program focuses heavily on cargo and personal transportation over the Gulf, supporting offshore energy operations. Flights could connect locations in Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi with offshore facilities. Then we have Louisiana, and this project looks very different. Louisiana's program focuses heavily on cargo and personal transportation over the Gulf, supporting offshore energy operations. Flights could connect locations in Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi with offshore facilities. Beta Technologies and Elroy Air are among the companies participating. Department of Transportation. Now let's talk about Florida. Florida may become one of the most interesting testing grounds in the entire country. The Florida Department of Transportation is planning a 3-phase statewide program. The missions include cargo transportation, passenger service, automation, and medical response. Companies involved include Archer, Beta, Electra, and Joby. This comes from the Department of Transportation. So Florida could potentially test everything from passenger air taxis to aircraft carrying medical supplies. Next is North Carolina. North Carolina's Department of Transportation is working with Beta, Joby, and other industry partners. The project will establish piloted medical and regional transportation operations across North Carolina. But here's the really interesting part. They are also developing an autonomous flight operation extending into Virginia. So the long-term direction of this technology may not necessarily require a human pilot sitting in the cockpit. And finally, there's Albuquerque, New Mexico. The city of Albuquerque's project is focused specifically on accelerating autonomous aviation and already has experienced developing autonomous aircraft systems. So when you see the headlines saying flying taxis are coming to 26 states, that is technically connecting to something very real. Here's the important distinction. It does not mean that residents in all 26 states can currently pull out an app, order an air taxi, and fly across the town. Not yet. This is an integration program, so this is very new. It's being integrated, and it's a real deal. The government is essentially creating large-scale, real-world laboratories where these aircraft can begin operating under control conditions. And according to the Department of Transportation, operations under the program were expected to start appearing as early as the summer of 2026. And that is now. The FAA is using everything learned from these flights to determine what regulations, infrastructure, and air traffic procedures will be necessary if thousands of these aircraft eventually begin to fly. And infrastructure is going to be one of the biggest parts of this transition. You may start hearing another word, vertiport. A vertiport is essentially an airport designed for vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. So instead of going shoo and taking off, you go like a drone, take off. Vertiport, yes, it's real. But here's another interesting detail. Initially, the FAA expects many advanced air mobility aircraft to use infrastructure that already exists. That could include existing heliports, airports, flight routes, and air traffic control systems, which are really, if we're being honest, there's so much that can be upgraded with our systems now, and we know that, and it's happening now. So it's happening. It's being integrated. This program is an integrated program. As the industry expands, dedicated vertiports and aerial corridors could eventually be developed. And that raises a fantastic possibility. Imagine a transportation system 10 or 15 years from now. Imagine a transportation system 10 or 15 years from now. You leave your house in an autonomous vehicle. It takes you to a nearby vertiport. You aboard an electric aircraft. It flies you 50 or 100 miles across the region. You land at another vertiport. Another autonomous vehicle is already waiting. The entire journey could potentially happen without you personally operating any vehicle at all. And this isn't simply speculation anymore. The regulatory groundwork is already being constructed. In October of 2024, the FAA finalized the rules dealing with pilots and instructors operating powered lift aircrafts. The FAA has also developed certification frameworks for the aircraft themselves and has established rules allowing power lift aircraft to eventually be used in commercial aviation operations. And everything is accelerating on an exponential rate. And some may say, what does AI have to do with this? Well, you can only imagine. So Joby Aviation has already conducted point-to-point EVTOL demonstration in New York. Archer Aviation is developing its Midnight electric aircraft. Beta Technologies is developing electric aircraft that can operate both conventionally and vertically. Wisk has been developing autonomous passenger aircraft. The FAA now describes advanced air mobility as a new era of aviation, rather than simply an experimental technology. But there are still enormous questions. What happens when hundreds or thousands of these vehicles are operating above metropolitan areas? How will the aircraft control manage them? How much will these rides cost? Where will they land? How loud will they be? What happens during extreme weather? What happens if an aircraft loses power? How will emergency landings work? And perhaps one of the biggest questions, how comfortable will people actually be stepping aboard an aircraft that someday may not have a pilot? These are exactly the kinds of questions these pilot programs are designed to answer. The FAA says early operations will probably look more like today's helicopter services. But as traffic increases, we could eventually see designated aerial corridors and new systems for coordinating these vehicles with conventional aircraft. And that means something significant. For most of modern history, transportation has essentially existed on two levels. We travel across on the ground, or we board large aircrafts at airports. Advanced air mobility introduces something in between, a transportation layer above our cities, and if the technology succeeds, that layer could eventually include passenger vehicles, emergency medical aircraft, autonomous cargo delivery, regional transportation, search and rescue vehicles, and many systems we have not developed yet. We may be watching the earliest stage of an entirely new transportation infrastructure begin to be created right now. People often imagine the future arriving dramatically, flying cars suddenly appearing. But technology revolutions usually don't happen in that way. They begin quietly and little by little, and this is how it's happening, and this is real. Regulations get written, companies conduct demonstrations, cities build infrastructures. Pilot programs begin. People slowly become comfortable with that technology, and then one day, something that once looked impossible becomes completely ordinary. There was a time when seeing automobiles on American streets was a struggle. There was a time when passenger airplanes seemed dangerous and experimental. There was a time when carrying a computer in your pocket sounded futuristic. Another transformation may be beginning above our heads in 26 states. 8 federally selected pilot programs, electric aircraft, autonomous aircraft, flying taxis, regional transportation, emergency medicine, cargo networks, and potentially an entirely new layer of infrastructure in American airspace. So the next time someone asks, where are the flying cars we are promised? The answer might look like, look up, because the testing phase has already begun. I'm Eva Rozier, and this is The Portal Between Worlds, Starseed Essence Media. And as always, keep questioning, keep researching, and keep looking beyond the world as it exists today. Because sometimes the future arrives much faster than we expected. Thank you for watching. Namaste. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this if it resonates with you. Thank you for watching.